Morning, everybody. Now, I need you to, again, as usual, confirm for me if you can hear me. I know you can see me. I know we're finally done with all those interruptions. So, confirm if you can see me. And if you can hear me, that's the only thing I'm still getting used to. So, I just need you guys to let me know. I'm testing mic now. Where are you? I can see 9 of you online. I expect Shola to be here. So, please be kind enough. Let me know if you can hear me. Come on, guys. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Simba. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you guys. And don't worry, I'll make sure I remember so that next week I wouldn't have to be asking you the same question all over again. So now we're good. And we also know ain't nobody stopping us again. Amen to that. Okay. So I've got a whole heap of house cleaning to do because of the week that was. And then I'm going to resume my Yoruba language broadcast, and it's going to be a standalone on its own on a weekly basis. I'm trying to decide whether I'll make it a Tuesday thing or a Wednesday thing. Um, Maybe a week after you find the subtitled version. Yeah, definitely within a week, you'll get the subtitled version of what would going forward be live broadcasts in Yoruba language. Um, because I don't want to make it, let me just say that I would attempt to speak to us from Yoruba proverbs essentially so that it will not be deemed overly partisan because everything these days revolves around partisanship, and I'm not really about being partisan. I'm about the collective good. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm still thinking through the challenge. I would like it to be a place where we discuss our values as Omoluabis. But don't worry, we'll come to that. So this week that was, there were a few things that happened. Some of them I will deal with when I get to the substantive part of my discourse this morning. But I would like to speak to a few of them. The week that was on the 10th of April, it would have been Chivayo Adebanjo's 98th birthday. He's translated now. He's gone. He's he's ran his race and he's gone. We can only speak to what he did with his life, the choices he made, at least as it concerns me and you as Nigerians. He's a man, or was, but when men acquire immortality, we continue to speak of them as though they are still with us. He was a man touched by the genius of immortality because he lived for truthful ideas. And he was a man who was touched by the affliction of the disadvantaged and the disinherited. He spent his life in the service of the poor and the disadvantaged. He didn't care for their ethnic origin. He began as a Zikist, but he lived the rest of his life as an Aoist for over 70 years. He lived true to his ideals and his ideas. So when opportunities arise to celebrate such men, we must celebrate them. And I celebrate the memory of Chivaya Adebanjo this morning, fully convinced that when the story of Nigeria is going to be told, heroes like him will be immortalized. But that is about Chivaya Adebanjo. In this week that was, a brigadier general of the Nigerian army Husseini Momo Brahma was murdered by Boko Haram terrorists on the 26th, on the 4th, oh, sorry, this April, just last week. He was murdered alongside another officer, a master sergeant, and a private soldier. At least that's the sanitized version of the news that most of us have received. He wouldn't be the first to be killed. Brigadier General Musa Uba was similarly killed that was in November 2025. He was ambushed, supposedly by ISWAP terrorists, the same ones that your chief of defense staff and your minister of defense and all of them would have you believe are your brothers who have merely committed errors. Brigadier General. Yorubas will say, Bikuban Pojubaini, Winlalon Pafoni. That when you see your kinsman dropping dead, it's reminding you of your own mortality. But this is not common. We're talking about brigadier generals. Those are command staff. Those are people you rarely ever find as casualties of war because their perimeters would usually be hardened. But this is not the time. When we get into the main body of my message this morning, we will speak to that. But suffice to say that in the week that was, it was made clear to all of us that there is very little about us that is worthy of any preservation by the Nigerian states. In the week that was, a great man, a dear friend, a brother, Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, turned 60 years old. That man traveled the dangerous roads from Lagos to Ekiti multiple times to lead other men of honor pro bono without receiving a dime or accepting a remuneration. He refused every offer to make any payment, even for expenses. Olumide Fushika SAN led others, including his partner Alaji, many others. But today is not their day. Today is Fushika's day. He turned 60. History will be written of the day. Fushika was an uncommon, remains one, but I'm speaking specifically in relation to my defense in Ekiti. But for the likes of him, I'll probably still be rotting in jail. He stood. It was his birthday. He turned 60. There is one song that I am wont to sing when occasions arise where we reckon our age. Because with the reckoning of age must come the understanding of our own mortality as well. It says, I grew up opposite St. Stephen's in Enolende, Ibadan. And they had this song. Say, I'll be sherewo, I'll be sherewo, koto wole ogo, I'll be sherewo. It means we shall examine you. We shall weigh you. We will examine you and we will judge you before you enter unto glory. If God the Father himself will promise you judgment, I guarantee you that men with whom you live, they will judge you. Olumide the Inka Fushika, I hope I'm not modeling up the names. But suffice to say, may the heavens be kind to you, and may you have a lovely time as you enter this portion and season of your life. May we be alive to celebrate many more with you. Nigeria offers sufficient pain in multiple areas. May you be spared each and every one of those pains. It is well with you. Wish you a happy birthday. God bless you with a happy life. My people, if we are quick to indict the oppressors of our souls, we must be equally quick to celebrate those who sacrificially serve all of us. In the week that was, Josiah Ojo Amupitan, Abina Joash, became Sunday Vibes 00. The jokes write themselves. When I told you in 2023, after the elections, or shall we say the sham, conducted by Yahoo Mahmood, I told you at the time that there will be no election worthy of his name in 2027. I think I've made the job much easier for all of you when I speak to these things now. I tell you, don't worry, it's the rant of a madman. You can always put it down to me being insane when I say these things that should be insane in any normal society. I told you, I said there will be no election. It sounded crazy to most of you, but then you're used to me saying mad things. But the thing is, mad as you might deem me to be, you cannot call me a peddler of falsehood. I told you. So let's be clear that it has pleased those who bothered to do the Oppo research to put together his dossier and to then selectively feed these into the public space. Yeah, he was careless, so he got caught. And at a minimum, if he has any shame, if the system still has any respect for me and you, what should happen is that he should resign. But this is not about honorable. There is no honor there. He just got caught. And if you are not going to be so contemptuous of us, I'm not too sure that there should be too much persuasion before the what a honorable person would do in a democracy, if we were a democracy. At least let's continue pretending that we are one. You understand? But I'm coming back to Amopiton later on. But you just need to understand that the week that was, I will continue to treat it as though a window was opened for you to see the way the system works, not the way they tell you it works, but the way the system works. You couldn't have known Tinubu at any level, whether you are his friend or his enemy, it doesn't matter. But there is no way you could possibly have known Tinubu and then expect that the person he'd appoint as the INEC chairman would be someone who would be responsible to you. That was never going to happen. The only thing is that they goofed. They should have vetted this one better than they obviously did. This was too careless, way too careless. And I don't know how you can actually save this guy if you still want to keep up the pretense that there is going to be an election in 2027. God willing. So that is, I don't want to get ahead of myself because there is actually quite a fair bit that I would have wanted to speak to, but because I know I'll be speaking to it when I come to the main body of my of my lecture this morning. So I'm just going to avoid the trap of spending too much time on it in this segment. Nigeria, my Nigeria. I would be, no, let me hold that back. I don't want to announce a decision a little too early. Yeah, yeah. Rest in peace, the fallen heroes. Heroes are falling every day in Nigeria. It's not just the soldiers on the battlefield. The man who wakes up in his house in the morning to go find a living for his wife and children. The woman who gets up to feed her husband and children if she still has a husband, who goes out. Most time, probably the woman is even the singular breadwinner. We must salute each and every one of these heroes. But the question you must ask yourself, even in pursuit of heroification, are you pursuing a war that benefits you, or are you looking to go die in their own war? We'll come to that. Maybe I'll even speak to that someday. But now it's 10 o'clock. I owe a duty to those I promised that will start our lectures at 10 o'clock, not to extend it beyond that. So good morning again, everybody. We started 15 minutes ago. Play catch up if you can. We did deal with the week that was. This morning, I'd like us to revisit the subject I started last week, the duty to rebel. So this is actually, let me say for now, should be the conclusion to that, because there aren't too many excuses to be offered for anyone who still believes that there is another pathway to resolve our many challenges. I'm convinced we have only one pathway, and that is the revolutionary path. Maybe the difference between myself and most of the people who speak to a revolution is that I believe they are aligned to the duty to rebel, which is essentially what must happen before you have a revolution. Aligned to that duty to rebel is also a duty to reconstitute. The duty to reconstitute is hinged on a plan for the day after the rebellion. In the absence of a plan to reconstitute, what you have is anarchy. That is when they talk about bloody revolutions. Because at the end of anarchy, the prevailing will that has overwhelming force, in the absence of a plan, imposes order. That is why they speak in terms of the bloodiness of this and the bloodiness of that. And it also happens sometimes when those who believe they have superior ideas do not find the patience and the maturity to speak to the people on whose behalf they presume to rebel. So you have violence because one side is seeking to impose its will on the other. I, on the other hand, believe that if you have an alliance of the people who are the ones who have been depraved and deprived by the system, who are obviously by far more in superior numbers to the beneficiaries of the system, if you can have that and you spend the time to explain the issues to the people and they have clarity as to what comes the day after, a critical mass of such persons, educated and clear in the understanding of what needs to be done, would be sufficient to ensure that violence is not required. And this is where we need to begin to understand the duty to rebel. Kant spoke essentially to the restoration of dignity. There are multiple reasons why we must rebel, and I've spoken to those extensively last week. But I'll recap before coming to the duty to restore the dignity of the self. The basis of the state, whether that is the Nigerian state or any state, is always for the protection of the interests of the citizens. At least that is the lie that the social compact theory tells for the emergence of the state. I have explained extensively last week. I took my time to explain that Nigeria is not your classic state. It was not found on the back of the common will of the people. It is a colonial contraction. Multiple states, multiple ethnicities were bundled together to create the state called Nigeria, and it's certainly wasn't for the benefit of those called Nigerians. It never was. And it is only up to us to find the common purpose to which to put Nigeria. In the absence of that, it will continue to serve its original beneficiaries and their local administrators. Nigeria does not serve the Nigerians. But even if we admit to the fallacy of a state serving its people, which will mean that you have citizens in place of the victims that Nigerians truly have. Even if we admit to that, let's take on that delusion. At its most basic level, the manifest duty of the state, the first of its many duties, is the protection of lives and properties. Just last week, a Brigadier General, Hussaini Momo Brahima, was killed alongside his troop, another officer, a captain, a master sergeant, and a private soldier. Probably more, because the first casualty in any war is the minimization of the casualty figures by propaganda. So lies become currency in wars. And if the Nigerian army would have us believe that a general died, a captain died, a master sergeant died, and a private soldier, and these are not merely representatives of the classes of loss that occurred at Benishek, who are we to argue? But even by its own admission, this past week, a brigadier general was overrun in his base. Now, let's understand that the Benishek base, like almost every other base in the Northeast and in every theater of war, you're not talking about a checkpoint. You're talking about proper hardened perimeters, even if it is not fenced, but hardened perimeters with armor, with multiple layers of security. And then in his inner core, you have the command structure. This brigadier general heading this base didn't run into an ambush in the same manner as Musa Uba, the brigadier that was killed by ISWAP in November 2025. No, he was on his own base, the point from where he is meant to project power into the neighboring towns and communities in order to protect them. So we're not talking about a random hit. We're talking about a hardened compound from where the people in the locality are meant to draw hope of security. This hardened shell was attacked by Boko Haram terrorists. The same ones that the Chief of Defense Staff, the same ones that the Chief of Army Staff, the same one that the Defense Minister will tell you are your brothers. They overran this place. Ikú tó ń pa ojúgbà ẹni, òwe ńlá ló ń pa fún ni. The death that kills your neighbor and friend is merely sending you advance notice of your own mortality. If terrorists would attack a hardened compound where a brigadier general was present and they fought for over 4 hours, it was reported that the attack began at 12 a.m. and lasted until daybreak. The Nigerian Air Force that could bomb in Benin was nowhere to be found at Benishek. No helicopters were deployed to Benishek. No jet went to Benishik. The base was overrun. The brigadier general was murdered. The state failed even its own primary servants in the business of protection. The same country that can afford to buy yachts for the president, the same country that is capable of maintaining multiple jets in the presidential fleet, that same country could not deploy anything in aid of a brigadier general. Years of training lost. Human lives lost. Nigeria daily advertises its incapacity to secure the lives and properties of Nigerians. The president himself is a hostage in power. When and at what point is the citizen or victim obliged to take his own fate in his hand when the state is advertising its failure? Now, if the failure were to be singular, it would be bad enough. But the same state that is incapable of protecting generals is credibly accused of complicity in the growth and spread of terrorism. I'm told Baraja is denying having said anything about importation of terrorists. Fair enough. Let's leave that. What about Commodore Lawumi, who told all of us that since 2016, the Nigerian state, the government of Buhari, was given a dossier setting out the names of sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria. They are comprised of persons in government. Should we ignore what Jonathan also told us during his own regime? Jonathan told us that he had Boko Haram in his government. The point is this: at what point are we going to come to the knowledge of the fact that those whose duty is meant to be our protection have compromised our security? Whether that be the political class or the military. And that is why its own men, generals, are being killed like chicken. A general had his position overrun, but in fact, he was ambushed by ISWAP, November 2025. General Musa Uba, dead. And that was it. Multiple layers of betrayers alleged for the failure that led to his death. Hosseini Momo Brahima, another brigadier general last week. These are generals. That's why we are hearing about it. But Yoruba says, Ibita Beru Labiomo, a slave is buttered in the exact same manner as the freeborn. What about the private soldiers, the corporals, the sergeants who are given AK-47 rifles that jam when the persons they are confronting are carrying more sophisticated weapons? Weapons that are purchased from the proceeds of kidnapping every day. Nigerians are being hunted and kidnapped. And so we're talking about a situation where the duty to rebel, even if only in relation to the failure of the state to protect lives and property, it has become existential. That duty is existential. Look, if we say, let's legislate against this madness by resorting to legal actions, exactly what opportunities for redress has our judiciary offered? I every level, all you find is putrefaction. The knowledge that the judiciary, that should be the last hope of the common man, is part and parcel of the system of oppression that has been erected in the place of justice. The judiciary is complicit. Look at Amukita, a professor of law. Professor of law. If you're using ranking, that is another general. He's alive, but he is lost to the critical thinking's club. He's lost. He has become so existential that he was being bad enough that he could be so brazen in his partisanship, denying what should not be denied. In order to save a job, Amukito can't be less than 60 years old. How long are we going to live? That we continue to make these existential choices that we should be ashamed of. Look, one of the duties of the state is to provide justice. And one of the things we say in law is that justice must not only be done, it must be seen to have been done. How can you say justice is being done in Nigeria? Explain it to me. Jackson only got a reprieve after he had been convicted and sentenced to death by the Supreme Court. All the courts affirmed his sentences to death because he killed a Fulani man who attacked him on his own farm. He used the guy's knife after he had sustained multiple injuries. That is the judiciary of Nigeria. That same judiciary found a way to allow somebody like Akpabio, who was manifestly unqualified, to end up in the Senate, and he is today the Senate president. The man can't even walk, he shuffles. And we laugh at Biya in Cameroon when our situation is much worse. They have broken the social compact. Nigeria has become a banana republic. It's not subject or anchored to any laws. Lawan is there in the Senate. He contested the presidency. These persons were expressly barred by law. But the law does not matter. The courts do not matter. The laws be damned, because the law is what the court says the law is. Judgments are now given as though you have arrived at the answer and you are walking back to the question. Shamelessly, brazenly. And we're supposed to believe in a legal order. If you believe that there is an existing legal order in Nigeria outside of the whims and caprices of men, I pity you. Probably have some dollars for you to come and wash. Look, you guys call yourselves citizens. But citizenship presumes that you have the protection of the law. That is the presumption of citizenship. But the reality is that in the place of citizenship, the Nigerian is a victim. I've already explained to you about the destruction of the legal system. But how do you then speak of citizenship in the absence of a functional court system where the law rules? And please, do not allow yourself to be fooled by the Western concept of laws and the rule of law. China is supposedly not a democracy, but the law rules. The people know what the laws are, and the law rules. Apartheid South Africa. You hear that? Apartheid. The law ruled. The law ruled. Each person knew what the laws were. The law ruled. And because the law ruled, the only problem were the racial tensions and the inequities arising therefrom, which was why they were in a state of perpetual war because of the inequalities. But they had rules which worked. We don't have a rule-based country. The legal order has been destroyed. It is what the men in power says the law is that has become the law. That is the reality of the Nigerian. And this is why today, instead of a country that has citizens, you have a feudal state. What is a feudal? I've told you guys multiple times. And this is the part where I'm going to beg some of you to please go to my website, deliverultimate.com, download that book, The Imperative of the Nigerian Revolution. I explained this in depth. The reality is that when you have a system that is not anchored to law, that is not responsible to a set system of rule, what you have is a feudal system. I have explained the Fulani root of the feudal system in Nigeria and his enablement by the British because it was better suited to their agenda. I've explained this ad nauseum, and you'll find this explained in depth in the book. But the reality is that the identifying marks of a feudal system is the weaponization of ignorance, the weaponization of poverty, and the weaponization of religion. These three things are always weaponized in feudal system because if you are not ignorant, you would ask the right questions. If you are not impoverished, which also comes as a function of your ignorance, because an ignorant mind is the one whose imagination has been curtailed and who cannot think outside of a defined spectrum. When a person becomes like that, his poverty is more or less assured unless he has inherited wealth. So when you have a system that weaponizes ignorance against its own people so that they can't ask the right questions, so that it's easier to misinform them, and they actively misinform them, if it is not misinformation, how can the hungry Igbo man think that is any different from the hungry Yoruba man or the hungry Ijaw man thinking is better than the hungry Igbo or the hungry Yoruba man thinking is better than so just because your own person is in power, you are enjoying the spoils of office vicariously. They are cooking the stew, you are smelling the aroma, and you are defending the cooker who stole your neighbor's chicken. It doesn't make sense. But this is what happens in feudal systems. You must be divided, and this is easier to achieve when you are ignorant. We've come to that point where persons are vicariously enjoying what their enslavers are enjoying, and they thereby strengthen the chains of their own enslavement simply because of the idiocy of ethnicity. And then they allow the erection of a feudal system where in the class of the feudal lords, nobody cares for your ethnicity. Or is it the idiot who believes that because he is Christian, he is better than his Muslim brother? Or the Muslim who because he's a Shia Muslim thinks he's better than the Sunni? Or the Sunni who believes that the Shia is an apostate deserving of murder? Let me share with you one of the idiocies that this Iran-Israeli-American war has brought forth. My brothers, the Sunni Muslims of Nigeria, rarely ever find any human solidarity with the Shia Muslims that they will be slaughtered in their tens and hundreds. 345, no, 430 were confirmed to have been murdered by Buratai and his troop in that Zaria massacre in I think that was 2015, in the early days of Buhari's regime. That was when Zakizaki's children were killed. Himself and his wife were picked up and locked up for years. None of my none of my Sunni brothers or clerics had any condemnation for this mass-scale slaughter of the Shia, who they regard as apostates and deserving of death. You ignore the humanity of the person on account of sectarian differences. That is the extent of the weaponization of religion in Nigeria. There will be protests called for what should be common causes, and persons will be divided on account of religion. NSAS, they were sending imams, sheikhs, to go and be turning the youth against their southern counterparts. That is what we have done to ourselves as a collective. We've allowed our enslavers. Oh, there is fuel scarcity, give them rice. There is insecurity, give them rice. Oh, the system, the healthcare delivery system has collapsed, deliver rice to them. Oh, we don't have light, give them light. Energy has become prohibitive, give them water, give them rice. Everything rice, 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 rice. Because they have turned all of us into Tifon. And you and me, who is still speaking Dogon Turenchi to ourselves, you have only so many voices and you have only so many votes, but you have a duty to teach those who do not have the benefit of this. I ran into a gentleman online. I think they call him Donaza. And I realized that when me, I'm speaking Dogon Turenchi to you, he is speaking broken to them. And he's doing a better job of breaking it down in relatable terms. You too, you have a duty. Stop the divisions. Rise above it. At your level, if we're in an army looking to fight for our own liberation, you guys are the officer corps. That you are here, it means you are one of those who still pursues Dogon Turenchi. There is a people to whom someone like Donaza is speaking. Connect the dots for them, because once it is the truth that is being told, amplify it. Amplify it. I'm explaining all of this for us because I need to bring home this sermon, because Immanuel Kant pushed a logic. And his logic is that you as a person must come to the recognition of your own humanity and respect for your own humanity. My grandmother, God bless her memory, she used to say to me, Bó bá pọ́n wọn lé, báwọn bá pọ́n lé, ara wọn ni wọn ò pọ́n lé. Torí báwọn bá mà pọ́n lé, wọ́n mọ̀ para àwọn làwọn pọ́n lé kí wọ́n tó lè pọ́n lé, ara rẹ̀ ìwọ pọ́n lé ló tó pọ́n wọn lé. That is to say, let me explain to you. She told me growing up that respect is not extrinsic. It is not something that is outside of you. That respect is inside of you. That for you to be respected, you must respect yourself first. That you, as a human being, you have a duty to respect yourself. That duty to respect yourself is what overflows to the next man. That if you have respected yourself in your interaction with them, they would have no choice but to respect you. Now, where you fail to respect yourself, you leave yourself open to disrespect. This is what Kant has elevated into a theory, and that is the theory and logic that speaks to the self-recognition of your own humanity. It is in the recognition of your own self-dignity, your own humanity. It is in recognition of that you now have the duty to rebel. Because if you do not rebel, what I'm saying to you is very clear. If you do not rebel, it is because you have no respect for your own humanity. You have no respect for your own dignity. If you have any respect for your own humanity and for your dignity, you would not require me to tell you that the situation in which the Nigerian is locked is not normal, and it is not one that must be tolerated. It is not normal, and it is not one to be tolerated. It is to be deprecated and rebelled against. A country that cannot guarantee your safety, cannot protect you, is not deserving of your allegiance. A system that cannot provide basic human needs, healthcare, education, road, security, water, power, is not one against whom one must not rebel. Your very humanity is being devalued, and you have a duty to rebel. There is a manifest duty that you hold to yourself, to your children, to posterity, to rebel. In recent days, the Americans put out a travel advisory. They did so after they had first suspended all consular services. They suspended it straight away. They shut down their embassy in Abuja. And then they put out an advisory. 23 states enumerated they were advising their people to stay away from. Largely the Northeast, Northwest, South-South, Southeast. The illusion of security still resides in the Southwest. Ironla, big lie. The theater has just not moved. The dangers are bound, and the wise can see. Nigeria has been surrounded. It is lost. And it is up to me and you, after we have taken on the duty to rebel, we must understand that there is a duty to reconstitute. It is that duty to reconstitute that we must now focus on. Because in the absence of a plan for the day after, in the absence of a plan for the day after, anarchy prevails. There is a duty to rebel, but there is a duty to reconstitute. The duty to reconstitute can only be found on superior ideas. There is an instructive quote from that African hero, Kwame Nkrumah. And I would like to end my sermon this morning by quoting him. He says, revolutions are brought about by men who act, who think as men of action. They think as men of action, and then they act as men of thought. He speaks to one Yoruba proverb. He says, Alagbara ma mero, baba ole. The unthinking brave is the father of the coward. You could mean well, but if you act without thought, you would only engender anarchy and chaos. I have no interest in either anarchy or chaos, but I am very deeply interested in the end of this unjust system that has rendered all of us almost as slaves. I'm deeply interested in that. And that is what my exertion going forward shall be. The duty to reconstitute is what we'll be speaking to next week. I'll lay out my ideas. It's a battleground of ideas. And if you have truthful ideas, you must never be afraid of persons challenging your thoughts and precepts. Nobody has a monopoly of wisdom. I merely have ideas, truthful ones, and I'll be looking forward to sharing with you next week. I encourage you guys, please, disseminate as best as you can, but understand, we speak today in the hope that today's people would hear. But because we speak the truth, we speak into the womb of time. if it is not you who are meant to act on what I'm speaking to, it will be because there is another generation that is meant to act. I've spoken my own. I'm comforted when I see the words of my departed leader, Jivaya Adebanjo, being serially replayed online. At least the part you find sensational, where he was warning you about the dangers of Tinubu's emergence. His words have proven prophetic today because he spoke the truth. Then I've seen a fair bit of people sharing my late leader and friend, his words. There is a video of him in Yoruba language, Shino Ogunlanu, where he spoke very clearly. He spoke to the unjust nature of Nigeria. Shino Ogunlanu spoke in Yoruba. O lówó lọ́wọ́, o lóògùn. Ojú rẹ̀ ò tún lé. He was speaking to the fact that you need to be bold, to be strategic, and to be devoid of fear. I see it shared. So I am comfortable in the knowledge that in the fullness of time, those to whom I'm sent will find this. But understand, you have a duty to rebel. That duty is aligned to a duty to reconstitute if you do not seek anarchy. I seek no anarchy. So next week, you have my topic ahead of time. We're going to be speaking to the duty to reconstitute. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you found the time to download the book, Imperative of the Nigerian Revolution. That was the book I was meant to write first. But in order to give you a contextual understanding of where I'm coming from, I ended up writing Do Not Die in Their War first. Go and download it. It's on dailyfarotimi.com and it's free of charge. I'm not asking you to pay. The least you can do, nourish your brain. If they have weaponized ignorance against you, I'm looking to weaponize knowledge against them. Go and download. Harm your brain. Weaponize your brain. Weaponize your brain. I am saying so specifically actually because of the draft constitution that is annexed to it. That is the beginning of the duty to reconstitute. We've done a bit of amendment and update to that constitution, and it will be readily available for everybody before the Sunday lecture. You'll be able to download a copy of the new updated version of that constitution. But it is time that we focus on the duty to reconstitute. The case for the duty to rebel is already made and overmade. The system makes that case for you every day. It is you who keeps deluding yourself into believing that this system has the capacity to deliver anything aside from the putrefaction it delivers. If you're foolish enough to believe there is an election behind which you can find change in 2027, you are a fool. I say it with my full chest. If you actually believe that there will be a free and fair election, you are a fool. I warned you in 2023. When they brought Amukpito, I warned you again. I told you Tinubu will never bring anyone he had not compromised. The man has amply advertised his compromise on his own. Even if they remove him, which I doubt, they don't care for your opinions. Even if they remove him, what is coming will be worse than he is. But that man, as even if he's a token, he should be gotten rid of. The only thing he hasn't done is wear his infinity cap and stick corn in his own mouth. But there is more than enough to show who he truly is. Not that someone like me didn't know, but now you also know. All right, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, everybody, I'll see all of you on Sunday next week. You be good, but believe me, the duty to rebel is in your hand. It is not the duty of the oppressor to free the oppressed. It is the duty of the oppressed to break his own chains. Breaking your chains lies entirely in your hand. Enjoy the rest of your week and stay safe. Hmm? Stay safe. God bless you all.